Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling in from. Welcome to another Learn Live session. My name is Gitte. I am an engineer in the Fast Track for Azure team, and I help customers mainly on all things related to application development on the Azure platform. DevOps is part of that, infrastructure as code is also part of that, and that's why I'm so excited about this Learn series on Bicep deployments to Azure. And today I'm joined by Barbara again. We did a session together already, so I'm very happy to see you again.
Yes, awesome. I'm going to do another one. My name is Barbara Forbes. I'm from the Netherlands and I work as the Azure Technical Lead at OGD, which is a company here in the Netherlands. So my focus is on Azure and automation, and Bicep fits right in between those.
Awesome, awesome. So this is already like the 11th episode in this Bicep series. So we are getting there. We are doing all of the modules for you. This one is going to be about pull requests, like how you can review changes on your Bicep files by using pull requests. Now, in case you have any questions for us during the session or anything you want to know, anything you want to ask us, we have our great moderator with us today as well. So that's Joshua. Joshua will be looking at the chat. So if during the live session you have any question, Joshua is very, very happy to answer them to you. And he might even get some of those questions to Barbara and me as well, so we can answer them for you live during this session. So as I've said, this session is part of a bigger series. And if you want to follow along, you see on the screen the aka.ms link to the Learn Live session. So feel free to go to that link or use a QR code. You can use it to just follow along through the session, see what we are talking about. And well, I just hope this is going to be a great session for you. This is going to be one where, in case you're collaborating on Bicep code and you're working together as a team and you're using Git as a repository to collaborate on that code, where with this session, we actually hope to, well, bring some safety to you and to bring some extra handholds to you so you can actually, well, deploy your Bicep code in a secure and safe way, let's say. Right, Barbara? That's basically what we'll be focusing on.
Exactly. It might not be what you're thinking of when you're thinking of Bicep. You might be like, well, I just want to deploy stuff and learn about the templates. But it is very important to keep track of that code, especially when it's going into production. And if you're working together with other people, you want to have a consistent process before something is deployed to
Exactly.
Azure.
Yeah, exactly. And this session is going to be all about process indeed. We're not going to look a lot at actual Bicep code. That's the other modules, but this is the process module one, let's say. So what you'll be learning in this module is how, in case you're storing your Bicep code that you're collaborating on, in case you're putting that in your Git repository, is how you can actually protect the branches, the important branches in that Git repository from accidental changes. So we'll be talking about reviewing the changes that go into your important branches and how you can do that by means of pull requests. So pull requests will be actually the new concept that we'll be introducing in this module. And what we'll also be talking about is, if in those pull requests it's Bicep code you need to review, what the important things are that you'll need to look at to make sure that the Bicep code is reviewed properly, like what is specific for a review of Bicep code. So that's going to be the focus today. Let's maybe first start with some intro stuff on this, meaning that, like, when you're working and when you're collaborating on Bicep code, you'll see that the main branch of your Git repository, that kind of becomes the source of truth, right? Everything gets merged to that main branch, and that is why, like Barbara, what are, like, and we'll go deeper into this, of course, during the module, but like, what are the small things that people might do or where they might make mistakes that the review towards the main branch becomes an important thingy?
Well, it's especially possible if you do just little changes where you think, well, this is not that significant. Maybe even you just change something to test it real quickly to see what it does. Maybe you change the region, so you change the location, or you change the name of a storage account because you want to deploy a test one, and the production one already exists. It can be these tiny things that suddenly can find their way into production where there shouldn't be, especially if there is some sort of pipeline involved, which I think is one of the future modules
Yeah.
that will be done. But especially if pipelines are involved, you want that main branch to be what you expect to find in Azure.
Exactly, because that's typically the thing that you deploy, and that's why you want to get that review in place. And that's exactly what we'll be doing, is like enforcing that change control process through pull requests. And like at completion of the module, we hope that you get more confidence in how Bicep code ends up in that main module. Now we do know that like this module also has some prerequisites. And one of those prerequisites is that you know what Git is and that you know how to use Git. In case if you don't know that, then we also have this link at the bottom of the slide, and our moderator will also put it at the bottom of the stream window. You can use that link as well, which is an additional learn module that you can use to actually get started on those basics of using Git. Yeah? So definitely go to that one as well to get a head start on those prerequisites as well.
And don't worry, you don't have to be so proficient or know exactly what's going on. If you're not familiar with Git, can be very intimidating. But both that module and this module are very practical. So they're very practical for you to actually start using it straight away. So don't worry if you feel you don't know Git at all. If you have that module and this one, you will get a long way.
Indeed, exactly. Now, if you've seen these learn modules before and you've seen these live sessions before, you also know that we're also working always based on like an example scenario. And this one is as well based on a toy company. And this time the toy company, they're already deploying their Bicep changes to Azure. But recently, actually, someone made a change to a Bicep file, and through an automatic deploy, that change also made it to the Azure environment. And that change was actually, well, an accidental change, a change that broke something. And because of that, the toy company now actually wants to put in like fail safes and a review process to make sure that in case someone makes a change to a Bicep file, that change is first reviewed. And that's where or why they are looking at pull requests to make a review of that change. The thing is then that the process becomes that the author of a change, instead of directly merging to the main branch of the project, what they'll be doing is they'll be creating a pull request first to ask whether a change can go in the main branch. And then reviewers can actually come in and look at the pull requests, look at what has changed, and based on that, they can then approve or disapprove the changes being made. So that's the extra fail-safe. Yeah? Now, I've used the term pull request a couple of times already, and again, we'll go deeper once we dive into the module. But Barbara, if like a pull request, if you could like explain that concept in like a small sentence or like an elevator pitch, 4 words, how would you describe a pull request?
Well, I think what you can, it helps if you think about when you have a change in a repository and you won't use a pull request, you use a push. So you push your code into a branch, in the main branch or whatever branch. You push it in. And with a pull request, you're a little bit more careful. So you take all the changes that you would do and you sum them up and you set them aside and say, I want to put these changes into this branch. So it's a bit more passive because someone else can then approve those changes, check them all, see if they're technically correct, check if they are what you want strategically. Do you want that change to actually happen? And then someone can approve it after that. Okay. So it's a bit more passive than a push.
Yeah. So rather than pushing and like throwing it over the wall, so to speak, you're now gently ask or kindly asking, hey, can you please pull my changes into the project? So it's actually more of an ask, and it's not you again throwing it over the wall. That's basically then what it is. Yeah.
It's a bit more gentle. Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. Now, before we talk about pull requests, what's also important for you to understand is branching. Because up till now, we've been talking about the main branch of a repository, but actually that main branch, and we've already kind of mentioned it, we hinted at it, it's one of the branches, if changes make it there, it can be dangerous. Like it's if you just merge changes to the main branch, those changes can make it to your production environment, and that's not always directly what you want. So hence, what a lot of teams do is they start with creating multiple branches where they do actual work on. And what they then actually also do is they start protecting the main branch of the project. But that being said, based on, and we'll also talk about branching strategies later on, but based on like the branching strategy or what you're doing with the code in your Git repository, it's not always specifically the main branch you want to protect. It might be additional branches, right, Barbara? I see you nodding. So
Yeah, you have several branches that could be important. It really depends on how you have your strategy going. And with branching, it is important to realize you don't even need to work together to work with branching. You can do this with your own repository, because what it helps you with is to say that whatever is in the main branch is always the correct code. This also gives you the freedom to mess around with the code. And play around with it. As long as you don't put it in the main branch, saying you just played around or messed around, then you're safe with whatever code is in the main branch. It might give you some more ideas on working with stuff.
Yeah. So the branch then actually becomes a way of creating drafts of work that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, and the thing is, like a typical process that we see for people starting off with using a Git repository and collaborating on code is a process where you have, first of all, you have your main branch. And one of the concepts I also really want to make clear on how you use Git is that when you're doing Git development, or if you're using Git as a repository, is that you always have the notion of a shared repository. That is the repository you're collaborating on. That's the one you see in GitHub or in your Azure DevOps environment. That's the shared repository that you have. And once you clone that one, once you clone that one locally, you also get like a local copy of that same shared repository. So this local copy becomes your working copy, so to speak. And a typical process that we see people use is on that local copy, they do create branches, like a branch to work on, which they then maybe merge again to their local main branch, but then they push it again to the shared repository. And that's where potentially a problem lies, where if you push that to the shared repository, there might be a pipeline, or in GitHub terms, a workflow connected to that where the workflow or pipeline get triggered because of that push to the main branch happening. And this might be the pipeline, or the workflow might say, well, I verify the code, I test the code, but I also deploy the code. And that is where the danger actually lies. Yeah. So one thing I just want to make clear is the concept of that shared repository where you're collaborating on, and the local repository, which is kind of like the local copy on your local laptop or computer. There might be multiple copies of this local repository, like all your colleagues working together as a team on the same thing. You all have your own local copy. Yeah. And also, like the guidance that we'll give in this module, and Barbara already hinted on this one, is that it's not only because you're collaborating in a bigger team that this guidance can be very useful. It's also, if you're just working by yourself, that this guidance can also help you to get in a safer mode or a safer process for your changes. Yeah. Now, okay, you have your local copy. Next thing that people often do is they start creating branches. And branches, they are like your piece of work. Like that's the thing you are working on. A typical thing that people do is they start creating feature branches. Like a new feature that needs to be added, you create a branch for that one, and that is the work you'll be doing for implementing that feature. Yeah? Might also be that you have another branch that is for a bug fix for something. So feature branches or branches, they allow you to separate the work that is being done. Now,
Yeah, and the branch is always a copy of that main branch.
Yeah, exactly.
So you
Once
want to make something new, you make an extra copy and you start working on that, and the main branch stays the same. I really like this picture because it's so clear.
Exactly. Once you have that, like the green dot with the blue line around it, that is where the copy gets created. But, and that's also the thing, once you start working on that copy, you might also drift apart, right? So you might also, if you keep the feature branch with you for too long, it might be that other changes have made it to that main branch, right? And that's one of the reasons why you also want to regularly update your feature branch with whatever change that has made it to the main branch. Now, just to be clear here as well, or just a question to you, Barbara, these branches, like those feature branches, where do they live? Do they live in the local copy that you have of the repository? Do they live in the shared one, or can they live in both?
In both, I think, ideally. Because in the ideal situation, a branch is very short-lived, as we say it. Because you don't want that drift that you're talking about. So you want to create a branch with a specific goal and then merge it again into that main branch. And then start with your next feature or bug. And you can have those separated locally or in the shared repository. Most important thing to me is that if you're working locally and something happens with your computer and you hadn't done a commit, then you will lose your code. So it's always recommended to commit a lot.
And to push it, actually. So
Yeah.
to commit and to push. The thing is, if you have the branch locally and you commit to it, then that piece of work that you have is in your local feature branch. Once you push it from the feature branch to the remote repository, it will also live there on a shared feature branch. And that's how you can also get collaboration on those feature branches, right? So suppose you're off on holiday, like your week has ended and you're like, oh, I'm off on holiday, and a colleague needs to finish what you've started, then like push to that remote feature branch can actually make that the colleague can continue the work, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, indeed, whatever you do on branches or when you create branches, ideally you want to make them indeed small and short-lived. The example that we have here is, suppose you need to make a change to a Bicep file, and the change that you need to make is an extra resource needs to be added, but you also want to kind of refactor the current Bicep file, and you also want to like split things out and create modules for certain resources. Now, if those are the two things you want to do, in that case, it's actually better to first do the splitting of the resource definitions in modules, merge all that again to the main branch, so that feature branch for the module split is a short one, and then do another branch for the extra resources, and merge that one then again. The reason why you do that is that in that case, the changes are small. It's very understandable for the one reviewing the code, what is actually happening. If there's multiple things happening on a feature branch, the feature branch will live longer because you need to do more things. And once you merge it, it will be multiple stuff on that feature branch. And people will not know anymore what belongs to what change. So the feature itself is also a handy thing to like split up the changes that you need to do. And that's the thing, like once you've finished with the work, ideally you want to merge that then again to the main branch. But, and that's the thing, instead of merging, we'll now be doing pull requests. Pull requests, the way we can do that is by protecting the main branch. once you protect the main branch, people are obliged, so contributors to the project are then obliged to use a pull request, and they are not capable to do a direct merge anymore. Yeah? And that is how you can get a review in place. So a pull request is actually instead of merging directly, you'll need to open a pull request, and then reviewers can come in, look at what you want to merge into the main branch, and they can actually approve or disapprove what you want to do. Depending on what you use, Azure DevOps or GitHub, as a mechanism, as a Git repo, the way to do that branch protection will be called differently. In DevOps, we call this branch policies. In GitHub, we will call that branch protection. And well, since we've been talking about this a lot, I think we just need to start showing the branch protection and the branch policies in an exercise, right? So Barbara is going to show you, and I think, Barbara, we do have time to show it both in GitHub and in Azure DevOps, right?
Yeah, we're going to do that.
We're going to do both, right? So for GitHub, what we'll be doing, so in this case, so there's an exercise in the lab that we're doing as well. The part that we'll be skipping is actually getting the Git repository and starting from the template repository. So Barbara has already set that up. But I think all the other steps, from cloning the repository, adding the branch protection, creating a feature branch, and committing and pushing to that, and trying to merge into the main branch, that's all stuff that we can show to you, both in GitHub and in Azure DevOps straight after. So Barbara, let's switch to your screen and let's see how that is done.
Yes, what I'm actually going to show is some different ways to use Git combined with Visual Studio Code, because Visual Studio Code is so helpful when you're using Git. But the first thing we wanted to do is protect that main branch. We don't want anyone to be able to push anything to the main branch. If you want to do this exercise yourself, you can use this repository that is linked in the exercise, and then say, use this template. Once you do that and click on use the template, you can create your own repository, give it your own name. And if you have a free GitHub account, you do need to have a public one. It's only available in public repositories. If you have a pro account or a Teams account, you can do it in a private one as well. Like Gitte said, I have already done this to save us all some time. So here I have that repository. It's just a complete copy from the one we just saw. And what I'm going to do is protect my main branch, make sure no one can push anything to there. So I'll move to settings here. And if I go to the menu on the left, I can add some things here. And here I have my branch settings. So I click on branches. And here my default branch is defined. It's called main. You can actually change that name if you want to use something else. And I can add that branch protection rules we talked about. So if I click add rule right here on the right, and I want to define the pattern that I want this protection rule to be for what branches it should apply to. So I want this to apply to the main branch, as we just saw. And I can change all the settings here. So I can hit all different settings on what I want to happen with this branch. And we're going to keep it simple. We're going to be right here at the top. Require a pull request before merging, which says I don't allow anyone to push anything to this code. I want a pull request. And I can even say I want a review. I want someone else to approve this. If you're going to practice this for yourself, you want to untick this. And I'm going to untick it here in case something goes wrong. I can approve it myself. Hopefully, Gitte will approve this one for me. But I'll clear this one. And if you do it with yourself, because you can approve your own pull request, if you don't add it here, then you can leave this one unticked.
Yeah, so this is actually mainly for when you're like all by yourself and your own team, right? In case you're doing anything within a team, you don't want people to approve their own pull request, because in that case, you're kind of bypassing the review thingy, which is the whole point.
Yeah.
Cool.
So in practice, you want to keep it on, and even you can define how many people should approve it. So you can even say, I want the approval of 4 of the people that are working here. You can do that if you want to. For this case, we'll leave it off.
Yeah. Can I also say, like, these are the people that I expect to approve, like a group of people that gets like a message in case there's a new pull request, or is that not possible?
I think everyone who is a contributor on the repository gets a message saying a new pull request has been entered. And you
Okay.
can tag people if you want to. You can tag people in your message saying, hey, can you check this out?
Okay. This is, by the way, a bit different than in GitHub as opposed to DevOps, because then you can actually say, this is the group of people, or these are the people I want as standard reviewers, let's say, right?
Yeah, we're going to see that
Okay.
in a second. And for here, let's just say this one as well. You don't have to do this in GitHub. You want to do this here, or in Azure DevOps. You want to do this here. Include administrator. So I'm an administrator for this repository because I created it, but I want to enforce this for me as well. I don't want to be able to push anything to the main branch. So with this one, I'll add create. And now my branch is protected. And we're going to see in a second that it actually is protected.
Okay, so this means that the main branch, no one is allowed to do direct pushes to the main branch anymore. Everybody needs to pass through a pull request, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And I can do this for other branches as well. In that case, I just put another branch name, like release, for instance, in case I also want to protect that branch. Okay, cool.
Exactly. And we can do the exact same thing in Azure DevOps, only everything is just slightly different, as it always is. I've just added an empty repository here because it's about the branch protection. We're not going to use it. If you're doing this one for yourself from the Learn module, there are instructions for doing this in Azure DevOps. And here I have a main branch, and I can select the branches right here in the menu. And I can see all the branches that are active in this repository, which is one, the main branch. And if I click the three dots here, I can see branch policies. So there's where I can set up my security for this branch. And here we see it require minimum number of reviewers. By default, I don't do that. So anyone can run that pull request. If I turn this on, I can say I want a minimum number of people to watch that pull request. By default, it's on 2. I can set this to 1 if I want to, if I'm on my own, but I still want to work with pull requests. And this one is important as well. Allow requesters to approve their own changes. If I set it like this, I am able to approve my own changes. And I am the only reviewer, and that's the minimum number, so that's fine. Which you can do if you're working on this on your own, but if you're working in a team, then you, for example, if you'd say it like this, then you do need 2 reviewers, but whoever created the pull request can also approve it. So in practice, you only need 1 extra person. So that's something to consider. And here I am. I don't even need to set this. This is now in practice, and I cannot push anymore to that main branch.
This one is an implicit save, right?
Yeah.
In one of the next modules, by the way, as well, and I think we're going to do a Learn live session on that one as well. You will also learn how you can actually, if someone creates a pull request, like that's basically an ask for the reviewers to have a second look at the changes that you're trying to merge into the main branch. But one of the extra things that you can do is you can actually help the reviewers as well with some automated checks on that new code that wants to make it into the main branch. So that automatic review, or that automatic, like for instance, you want to, if it's code like .NET code, you want to do a build, for instance, and run the tests. If it's Bicep code, you might want to do linting on the Bicep code, make sure that everything makes sense, and then you can do like an automated linting step, show that everything is okay to the reviewers, and then they have an extra fail-safe, let's say, or an extra check that they can lean upon to actually approve or disapprove the changes that want to be merged into the main branch, right? Yeah, but that's coming up in the next module.
Yeah, you can absolutely add automated testing. But let's see if we're moving back to this one. So this is the code, and I already created a local copy by using Git right here in my Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to ask a hard thing. I'm going to ask you to ignore actually what's happening in the code because it's not that important. It's about the process that we're going to follow. What we're going to do is create a local extra branch to add changes. You can do that in the terminal and use the Git command line. But I have found that I do like how Visual Studio Code can help you because it's got visual stuff for about everything you can do with Git. And the first one we see down here, I see that we're on the main branch. And I can actually change the branch that we're working on locally by clicking here. So if I click here, a menu opens up and like I said, I want to create a new branch. And I'll do that. And I'll add a name. And I'll press enter. And if we look down here now, I'm now on a different branch. So locally a copy has been made of all my code. The main branch is still safe. And I can now start changing things on this one, on this separate branch. Remember, this all is still local. There's nothing going on in my repository in GitHub yet. That's going to follow later. So what we're going to do is change a little bit of the code. And what we want to do is add queue storage to the application. And to do that, I'm going to quickly add some options to the Bicep file. And as I said before, it's not that important. That's why it's not all there. You can't see the whole code in the screen because it's not really about the screen. The point is that I'm gonna make several changes within my files. I'm gonna see
so
that.
This is basically you working on a draft within your own branch and like indeed adding some like a new feature, which is I think a storage account is what we're adding, right?
Yeah, I wish it went this fast in real life. Like, yeah, copy and paste everything. It's just there. But yeah, if you're interested in the code, it is all right at the exercise in Microsoft Learn. So you can see all the code and see what actually happened here. For the sake of time, I've just copied and pasted everything. And I need to save this one. And now what I can see here is the source control. And the source control tells me what's going on with Git. And I see a 2 here, which means that 2 files are different than our repository file in the environment in GitHub itself. So the shared one. So if I close these up, I can even see what the changes are that has been made. So I see a change here, and here I made some changes. So I can view what I will be committing. And then I can commit this to my local environment and then to the remote environment. So what I would do is add a message here. Oh, I copied too much. You can do this all in the terminal and a command prompt, but I like to show what Visual Studio Code can do for you. So I add a commit message here where I can describe what I'm actually changing here. So I add orders, queue, and associated configuration. So it's very clear if you see this commit, what has happened and what has changed. And I click over here.
So this is immediately also staging those changes, or do you need to click the plus as well in Visual Studio Code? I like the command line, so I do all this like git branch, git checkout, git add, and git commit. So
yeah, if you use that one, you can still do it with the exercise. All the command line stuff is there. I have actually set Visual Studio Code to automatically stage all changes if I have not defined them. But I am able to say I only want to commit this one, for example, and I don't want to commit the other one. But I have set Visual Studio to just commit, stage everything while we're going to save myself a click. Always good to click less. So if I click on commit here, this has now been committed to this branch, still on the local environment. And here I now have a button saying publish this branch. So that will bring that branch back to GitHub, so to the remote repository. So if I publish this branch and my computer goes down in flames, that's no problem because my code is saved, except that I don't have a computer anymore. So let's do that. Publish this branch. And now it is pushed to my Git environment. And just to make a little point, let's see what happens if we move back to the main branch. I'll remove this for a second. And I'm gonna use the terminal real quickly for this one. So let's say I'm on the main branch now. I actually got that in my prompt. And let's say I want to merge them together, like we just saw. It would be like a push if I did this in Git itself, in GitHub. So let's say I want to merge those together. So I say it like this, and I say...
changes, yeah. So the changes were on that at orders queue local branch, and now you're merging those changes into the local main branch, basically, right?
Okay. Exactly. So my local main branch is now completely new. It's completely all those changes I made are part of my local main branch. Now what's going to happen is if I say I want to push this to GitHub because I want my code to be safe and I want to use this in GitHub and make it part of the project itself. Now if I add git push, it's going to fail. And it actually tells you why. It's been protected. It's a protected branch and changes must be made through a pull request. So I can see locally why it went wrong. I got all the information. I know I need to create a pull request to do this.
Okay. So pushing to that feature branch or that add orders queue branch that was not protected in the remote repository, that was possible. You were able to do that. But if you want to push from the local main branch to the remote main branch, that is failing because of the branch protection.
Yeah, exactly. I have branch protection there, so I cannot change it from here. It's a good thing I can reset. Whoops, didn't actually copy and paste this. I can reset it right here, back to where I just was. And now my main branch is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I've used that reset statement time and time again, saving my ass. So that is, again, putting the main branch back to where it was before you did the merge from that add orders queue feature branch, right?
Yeah, and if we look at GitHub, we will see now that that other branch is there, though. So we have something to work with here.
Okay, that was the push from the local orders branch to the remote orders branch. So what Visual Studio Code is actually doing is it's also creating that remote branch for you. If you do this with Git statements, you would need like a set upstream kind of thingy, I think is the extra statement you need there to actually create that remote branch as well, right? But Visual Studio Code is very clever on that, and it kind of creates it for you. Cool.
Visual Studio Code, I think, is very helpful if you're not that familiar with Git yet. It's handy to know all the command line stuff because not everything can be done in Visual Studio Code. But if you're getting started and you're still confused with remembering them, it just makes your daily life a little bit easier.
Yeah, and then you only use the commands if you need, well, like me, to save your ass from stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So before we continue with the exercise, because the second part of the exercise will actually be creating the pull request, I think we'll first go back to slides again and just talk a bit about different branching strategies. It's just going to be a short thingy on, well, branching as a whole. Because like you've seen Barbara work on the main branch, create a feature branch for the changes she was gonna do, and protect the main branch as well. Now, the thing is, however, like based on, let's say, what process you as a team want to use, there is different branching strategies that you can use. Depends a bit on what you want to do and how you want to, let's say, deploy and when you want to decide when you deploy. But basically, the branching strategy will influence that. Yeah. Now, one tip that we already want to give is whatever branching strategy you want to end up with, start small, start easy, start with a simple process. and see if that works for you. Only start adding those additional layers of branching and the extra complexity in the branching if you see at a certain point in time that you actually need it. But that's the thing, start small. And like the first branching strategy that we have here in the slide is actually one, that's also the one that we are using, actually even part of that one is what we're using in the lab as well, which is called trunk-based development. Now, what is trunk-based development? Trunk-based development is actually where you have a trunk or a main branch, and that is the one that is always deployable to production. This one has like the main parts of your code. And what you're doing is you're actually working with those short-lived feature branches, basically exactly what we've been doing. Those short-lived feature branches, they contain all the draft work, and they are quickly merged to that trunk, to that main branch. And off of that, you can then always deploy to your production environment. Now, one additional thing that people sometimes add to trunk-based development, and that's already an extra layer, let's say, is that they also sometimes work with what we call release branches. This is typically when you're like deploying at certain points in time, where you have like a weekly build, let's say, or a bi-weekly build. And at the end of each week, you create a release branch with all the latest bits, and that's then the thing you deploy to production. So there is some variation there. Typically, those release branches as well then are also branches you want to protect. Like you not only want to protect then the main branch, but also the release branches. A bit more complicated, you already see a whole bunch of arrows and dots and everything on this one. A bit more complicated is, for instance, Git flow. Git flow is not necessarily the branching strategy you want to end up with. There's like a whole article that you can find online with like, let's say, the problems that exist with Git flow. The main problem being that Git flow, instead of using a main branch for all the main bits of your project, they actually use a branch that is called develop. And that's actually the problem, let's say, that exists with Git flow, is that instead of doing your basic Git commands that you know, like git branch, git checkout, and git merge and everything, you're not working off of the main branch by default. You're working off of that develop branch, which makes those Git statements more complicated. And hence, there's a lot of comments on Git flow. There's also, let's say, easier variations of Git flow that like GitLab flow, the GitHub flow, that one as well, which also exists. That you also may want to check out. The main message I think we want to bring here with the different branching strategies is like, again, start small. The trunk-based one is a small one you can start with. Also have a look, just to read through all the other branching strategies that are out there and see if potentially there is a fit with one of those other branching strategies. Like GitHub flow is one that I see I see quite some people use, specifically in the open source world as well, because that's where that one originated. GitLab flow is one that's, let's say, an easier one than Git flow, which is also one you may want to look at. At the end of the module, I'll also share the link to the references, and there you can find a lot more information on different branching strategies. Right? I don't know, Barbara, if you have like a favorite branching strategy, or does it depend on what you do?
It completely depends on whatever the project is you're working on. For example, the Git flow really works well to me to PowerShell modules that I have in the gallery, because I know I'm developing in the development branch and adding some small stuff, but when I'm ready to release it, I know the production branch is always the same as the one that is actually at that point in the gallery. So I build on releases on that. But one thing I think that's important to mention is that Git is actually a pretty smart tool. Because if you look like branching strategies like this one, you see a lot of people might be working on the same code and then putting it together again. And Git is actually pretty good in finding out what code needs to stay and what code needs to go. So there can be some conflicts which you then need to resolve manually. But overall, for example, if you add some code and a colleague of yours adds some code as well, Git will understand how it should merge that into one file. So that's I was pretty impressed with that when I first started using Git.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can still bump into merge conflicts, but they are actually, especially if you keep those branches short-lived as well, then the changes are short, and then merging all of that together is actually an easy thing. And you're not like was it like source save or TFS version control back in the days where you're like locking each other out? I was constantly locking people out of their code, but I don't know what I did wrong. But Git is a much better fit for me in that case. So now, whatever branching strategy that you use, the thing is as well, like the guidance that we give you in this module on the branch protection and the pull requests, that is something that you can use whatever the branching strategy you go for. So if you go for Git flow, or you go for GitHub flow, or you go for trunk-based development, it always makes sense to protect those important branches of your branching strategy. So, and that's basically the message we want to get across here as well. Use branch protection and use pull requests. That's the thing to go for. Yeah. Now that you know the branching strategies, let's actually talk about pull requests and how you can review and merge those Bicep changes. And then also let's do an exercise on that one. Yeah? So you've seen Barbara set up the branch protection, but now you also already saw in the exercise that there was this message on top of the Git repository that says, hey, you may want to open a pull request. And a pull request, as we've said in the beginning, is actually an ask from you as a developer of that feature to please pull that change into the main or the protected branch of the project. So it's an ask to someone else. And the process with that kind of changes a bit. The thing here, by the way, on this image, it's a bit off. And I've started the request to the maintainer of the module as well to change or update it a little bit. And I'll talk you through where the image is off a bit. But the biggest change that you'll see is instead of directly pushing your change to the main branch of the project, you're now actually asking to pull that change into the main branch. So step 3 will become a pull request ask. Yeah. The way in which this image is off is that the pull request actually doesn't start from the local repository branch, but it actually starts from the shared repository branch. So in the shared repository, you will also have that feature branch, and it's off of that shared feature branch that the pull request will start. So actually the origin of the 3 pull request arrow is a little bit off, but we will try and fix that one in the module as well. So it's very clear what the process is and what it looks like. Yeah. And with that, I think we should just show you what that looks like. Yeah. So what Barbara will be doing in the next exercise is actually create a pull request. I will perform a review, so I'll try and perform a review. You will not see me do the review, but you should see some message pop up on Barbara's side. And I will also, I think it's you, Barbara, who will complete the pull request, since you had that one checkbox that said that requesters could actually review their own or approve their own pull requests. So let's move again to your screen so you can open the pull request. Yeah, so I'll start refreshing my screen.
Yeah, we're gonna do a live pull request. Let's see if this actually works. We can get this whole thing through. So we're back here in the GitHub repository. And it already says, hey, you added a new branch, or you added changes to a branch. Do you want to compare them and create a pull request? If that doesn't happen to you, because maybe it's been some time, you can also find branches here. So I see I have 2 branches, and I click on that. And I see the main branch and the add orders queue branch. And over here, I also get that button, create a new pull request. So I'll click that. And what I can do here, it says here, one thing important, able to merge. It can be automatically merged. So Git understands which changes should go where and which should win and which shouldn't. So that's good.
And it's also like showing like from which branch to which branch you'll be merging the changes. So the arrow points to the left, meaning that you'll go from the add orders queue into the main branch, right? So that's a good visual cue there.
I can change that around if I want to. I could
Which we don't.
merge the main into the add orders queue, but that's going to be messy. Let's not do that. Yeah. This is what we wanted to do. And here it adds the commit message that I have used. If I have multiple commits, it will just use the last commit message. And you can change this to whatever you want, but this will go down into the history of your commit history. So you do want to use the right kind of... you want to have a message that actually describes what you're going to do. And here I can leave a comment, which I've copied and pasted. I can't type that fast. That describes what this thing is actually doing. This can help my reviewer. And this is something where I could also add if I'm not ready, for example. If I'm not ready and I could use some advice. And what I can actually do is tag Gitte and say, could you take a look? So I know for sure that she's going to get an email somewhere that she will take a look.
Yeah. And also, wait, before you click that button, so one of the things you can also do with a pull request, but I'm not seeing the option with you currently. And I think that probably has to do since you're on like a personal account and working by yourself and don't have like maybe a GitHub Teams thingy. Is like one of the things you can also do with the pull request is create a draft pull request. Is where you do create a pull request, but you're actually indicating, hey, I'm still working on this. I'm still doing stuff and don't review it yet, or maybe you can already comment on it, but this is not mergeable yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can
looking for that one. It should
be the green button that is a drop down, but I'm not seeing it either. So no. But again, I think it's because you're on a personal account or something that you're not seeing that.
Maybe this will collect it. No.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, what I did actually do is also tag Gitte here saying, hey, I want you to do a review. I can do that as well. I can add people who I want to do a review. So let's create this pull request.
Yeah. Let's see.
And as this has been created, what Gitte can now do, she can see the exact same code as we can here. And she can see the files that have been changed. So if you click here to the files change, she can see exactly what is different than it was before. So this has been added, this has been added. So she can get an overview. She can also get this state of the pull request locally. So she can get that code locally if she wants to do some testing with it. That's all possible. You can work a lot with it. And look, this works. It added a comment here. And let's just see if we can find that comment in the code.
Oh, I did it directly on the. Wait. Let me do this properly.
Because this is actually nice. You are able to add something in the code itself. So you can say directly, this is what I'm talking about. This line, shouldn't that be different? Did you add it already?
Yeah, submitting a review with a comment now. Sorry for that. I was too quick and now I made a typo, but you'll see the typo. There we go.
There we go. We see right here, shouldn't this be capitalized on the order queue name, process order? Which is a valid question that could be part of the naming convention. Everything should be capitalized. So that's a good idea why you would have someone review stuff. But in this case, this is an queue storage, and storage accounts, they don't allow capitalizations. They need to all be lowercase numbers. So I can reply and say, no, I can't capitalize storage, queue storage, I should say. Names, there we go. This should be like 5 words. Yeah. So I can comment this. So that now Gitte knows I have looked at this and I've explained, no, you can't do that here. And we can either keep talking or I can resolve the conversation here. And I think Gitte is also able to say, okay, never mind, resolving this. And now we're all happy.
Yeah. So one of the things you can also, by the way, do when you're commenting on code from people is you can also like inline make adjustments. Like you can inline make updates, and then Barbara can immediately like accept that update, which is I think a nice feature to have. I only found that out by collaborating on code a lot with people, where I was like, oh, I can actually directly make a change, and then the person who opened the pull request. They can actually then say, oh, I like your update to the code, and they can immediately then commit it as well to that pull request branch, right? To the branch originating into the pull request.
Yeah.
One of the things, it
really becomes collaboration that way, which is really cool.
And one of the things Barbara can also do, if like she, like based on my comment, she does need to make an extra change, she can actually push more commits to that add orders queue branch. And those will then also end up in this conversation here as well. And that's how we can then collaboratively and iteratively work on this feature together.
Yeah, exactly. Really cool to work like that. So, well, I think this code has been checked. It has been reviewed. That comment has been checked and all is fine. So are we ready to merge this to production? I think we are. This is where, for example, you would say, Gitte could say, okay, let's get this merged. It's all done. And I can right here merge this pull request into main. And this is clicking a button saying, all right, I'm going to merge this with this message, confirm. And now this branch is actually the main branch. They have been merged. And I immediately get this window here saying, do I want to delete this branch? And you want to do that. And I say that as a data hoarder. I want to keep everything, but you want to delete branches because they make stuff very confusing. You just want to create new branches when you want to create something new. So you just delete this branch. You can restore it quickly if you want to. You can delete it because you don't need it anymore because it's now part of the main branch. If I look back now at my code, I see this is the commit message I just used 23 minutes ago. And that code that I have changed is now in here. So if I look at that queue storage, this is now part of the main branch. And that other branch is gone. And I can start creating new branches for new features that I want to add.
But when you deleted that branch in the Git repository, that was the shared one that you deleted, right? On your local repository, that one is still there. So that's still, if you want to get rid of that one as well, you'll need to do like a Git branch delete thingy on that one. So it's only the shared one that is gone, which is a good thing. You don't want your shared Git repository like full of these different branches, right?
But it's good that you mentioned it. A very good practice is to move back to your Visual Studio Code, whatever you're working in. If you are on that branch that you used, move back to the main branch. Because I have done that wrong so many times that I start creating new code and then discover that I'm on the wrong branch. And then you move back and it gets all complicated. So make it part of that pull request to get your local environment back to that main branch.
Yeah. And maybe also now that you're here, if you go to your files now in Visual Studio Code, like currently the updates that you've made, they are not on the main branch, right? Yep. They are not like in the main.bicep file. They're not in the azure-resource-manager file. There's no, that one is not there. So the best practice here is then to also update the main branch with the changes that made it into the shared main branch. So it's all about process, right? So you can now do a git pull, and that will then update your main branch, right? That will also see that come in. There we go. So we actually see main.bicep file and app-service.bicep file and the green plus thingies saying, hey, these are new things coming in, right?
And of course, if you want to do the Visual Studio Code way, you can also do it here. But git pull I actually always do from the command line because it's so short.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, when working with Git in the beginning, like all those command line commands, they will look a bit intimidating. But once you start working with it, it actually becomes easier. But indeed, like for people starting out, using the interface of Visual Studio Code is actually a whole lot simpler and easier to do all this. That's very correct. But then still you need to know that you have the remote repository, you have the local repository, you have the branches, you're committing or adding files, you're committing files, you're pushing files. Those are the main concepts that you need to know exactly. And now you know how to do pull requests. So I think that's the last demo that we have, right?
Yeah. You can move back to the sheets.
To the slides, and that means that we are already on our knowledge check. So let's have a look at if people actually understood what we were talking about. So let's see how much of this information stuck with people.
People can go along.
Yeah, the knowledge check is both on the GitHub and the Azure DevOps site, meaning that you see two screenshots here for the knowledge check. The left one is a screenshot from GitHub. The right one is a screenshot for Azure DevOps, but they actually configure exactly the same thing. So suppose that you have your repository and that for the main branch, you have configured branch protection as indicated on those images. So we're requiring, on the left-hand side, pull request before merging, and we're requiring approvals from at least 2 people. On the right-hand side, we're also saying we require a minimum number of reviewers, and here as well, we indicate we want 2 reviewers. And now we have a question coming up based on those images. And the question is, which of these statements is true? Now, we have 3 statements here. The first statement means saying that anybody on the team can push a change directly to the main branch. Second option is the manager of the team must review all pull requests, or option C, the pull request author can push a change to the pull request's source branch. Now, like Barbara and I, we've looked at this question beforehand, and we must say it is a tricky, it's like 2 of the options are tricky, right?
You need to read all the words.
Yeah, you need to read all the words of the options. Yeah, and let's maybe discuss the options that are there. And I also already see answers coming in, so that's good. So if you go to aka.ms/polls, you can actually vote live during the session. So go ahead and do that. And I'm already seeing votes come in. But let's maybe first discuss this one. So with that setting that says I want to have 2 reviewers, can we still push now directly to the main branch? What do you think, Barbara?
Well, technically, that was something we were trying to prevent in this module.
Exactly. And that was basically why we were setting that up, right? And that was basically why those settings were there. So option A, I think we can rule that out. Yeah. And up till now, nobody has gone for option A. So woo, that's a good one. But then we have option B and option C. So option B is the manager of the team must review all pull requests. Option C is the pull request author can push changes to the pull request's source branch. Now,
I think the important thing is to look at what the difference is between A and C, for example. Because if you read them quickly, they seem to say the same thing.
But in C, they actually mention the pull request's source branch, which means the feature branch you are coming off of. Yeah. So that's the feature branch where you potentially push more changes to that feature branch. Now, with those settings, a review is still needed, yeah, but you can also still push changes to that source branch. So you can still push changes to that feature branch where those are then extra commits on that feature branch. So the correct option here is option C, and actually all of our voters got that one right. So I'm very, very happy. That means that we did a very good explanation on this one. Perfect.
Yeah, and the last thing we can mention is that the manager needs to review it. Yeah, we didn't specify who needed to review it. Someone needs to review it, but it doesn't need to be the manager in this case.
Yeah, so that one is ruled out actually for that first question. Exactly. Second question. So you want to get your colleagues' input on a change you're making to a Bicep file, but you aren't finished with the change yet. What should you do? So you're changing something to a Bicep file. You do want to get some input from colleagues, but you're not like really finished with it. Should you A, create a pull request and configure branch protection rules to prohibit the branch from being merged? Should you B, create a pull request and mark it as draft? Or should you, option C, send an email to your colleagues, send them a link to the branch and say, hey, take a look at this one, please review. So what would be the one here, A, B, or C? Barbara, what do you think?
I'm thinking let's give everyone a little chance to look at it, but I do like these answers.
Which ones do you think we can already rule out?
I mean, there's like the first one is like so confusing. Like what? Huh? So
well, the branch protection should already be there, so you shouldn't have to now configure that on the fly, right?
Yeah, but it's like, okay, we don't want this branch to be able to merge to main. I'm wondering if there's a legit use case to do that.
I don't think you can even do that, so.
But yeah, so I think that might not be the one.
Yeah, let's rule out A. So for C, the C option, that's kind of like poor man's
It does work. It's technically correct.
Technically, that one is correct. But still, I think here we want to go for option B, right? So that's the option that for Barbara wasn't possible. And again, I'm thinking that's because she's on a personal account and she's not able to create a draft pull request. But that's actually the thing you should do. You should create a draft pull request for that one. And the draft is actually indicating, hey, I'm still working on this one. Yeah, and please don't approve it yet. It's still a work in progress. That's the thing with option B. Cool. Third and last question in our knowledge check.
Cast your votes.
Exactly. Third question is you're reviewing a pull request from a colleague and you notice that the Bicep file has a typo in a variable name. The typo will cause an error when the template is deployed. What should you do? So a colleague has created a pull request, you're reviewing that pull request and you see something is wrong. So what should be your next step as a reviewer? Should you A, add a comment to the pull request's author to let them know? Should you B, reject the pull request? Or should you C, approve the pull request and the author will notice a problem when the Bicep file is deployed? So that person will notice it when it crashes and burns in production. That's basically what option C is saying, right? Crash and burn on that one. So I think I already kind of ruled out option C.
Oh, I love option C. Just YOLO, let's go and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. That's like right-click deploy to production, right? Yeah. Which is something we do not advise at all. Do never, ever right-click deploy to production. But yeah, option C is not the thing to do, right? There's an error in the Bicep file. You're a reviewer. You should do the proper thing. You should not just approve the pull request. So let's rule out option C. Yeah. Exactly. Then how about either option A or B? Like, how would you reason your way through option A and B?
Well, technically, they both work, as in the typo will not make its way until production. But yeah, rejecting the pull request, what was the point of the review then?
That's so harsh, right? You want people to improve. Like, this is a small change someone can make to actually get the pull request approved, right? So rejection is they'll need to start, well, it's not like they'll need to start all over, but they will just see the rejection and they will not know what is even wrong with the pull request they created. Yeah. So let's not go for option B, right? And this one actually, all the people who voted got this one right. Is the best option here is to actually add a comment. So the pull request author knows what is wrong with the code, and they can actually then make an additional commit to the code, and well, after that commit, the pull request can then actually be approved by the reviewer. So in this case, option A is the right option. So I'm very happy that this time, I think there was one wrong vote, but all the other people voted right for all the options. So that was
Awesome.
Awesome. Cool. And that actually, after this knowledge check, that actually then wraps up this module for us. So what we've seen today is how you can protect your important branches from accidental changes. You learned how to do that by creating and reviewing and merging pull requests, and by enabling the branch protection on your important branches. One thing I don't think we talked about was what typically for Bicep code would be good things to check on Bicep code. Like, we didn't really cover that one. It is in the module though, but I think I kind of accidentally skipped over that. But you may want to look at a good use of parameters. You may want to look at good naming conventions. You may want to look at things like, are people adding descriptions to things that are not clear? Are people using modules in the right way? So those are the things you can check as a reviewer. And again, one of the next modules will actually talk you through how you can automate the review as well. So how you can add automated steps during the review that can then help out the reviewer of the Bicep code. So definitely check that one out as well once it's coming up. One of the things you also definitely want to check out is the reference section in this module. So if you use a QR code or the aka.ms link on the slide, that will actually bring you to the module's summary. And the module summary also has those references to those extra branching strategies that you may have. So definitely check that out as well. The full module again, so here as well, the QR code, so the aka MS link for this full module. I would say go through it by yourself as well. Yeah. Specifically the exercises. If you've never done pull requests, if you've never done branch protection, the thing is, I talk a lot with customers on how they can protect the main branch of their project. That's like the default talk I have with them, whether they're doing Bicep code or Terraform or good old ARM template or coding. That main branch needs to be protected. And hence, if you don't know how to do that, walk through the module by yourself, do the exercises. You'll learn tons by just doing the hands-on stuff. Also, don't miss out on the next module. So there's more modules coming up. Next one, I think, well, June 7th, that's next week, right? Next one is going to be on deploying to subscriptions, management groups, and tenants by using Bicep. So that's different from what we've done up till now. Up till now, it was all resource groups, right? So,
but I'm also going to be part of that one.
Aha, awesome.
So people can decide on themselves if that means that they want to watch or not.
Definitely, I'll watch that one, Barbara. I love seeing you talk. So, and I think I'm up again in about 2 or 3 weeks. So you'll see me again in 3 weeks. I don't know who's going to be my partner in crime for that one, but yeah, I had a blast with this one. So I don't know for you, Barbara, but I had a lot of fun.
Awesome stuff to work with. This really, especially if you think you're not familiar with Git, it's a bit intimidating. Take this module to just get a feel for it, and it will get better, and you will be very happy once you've learned.
Yeah, and this one was a bit different than the other Bicep modules that we had, because it was actually focusing on Git and how to do stuff with Git and on GitHub and on Azure DevOps. So it was a bit different, but it is very important stuff once you start collaborating on those Bicep files. So I hope you all enjoyed it. And yeah, let's see each other again in another session. So bye for now. See ya.